Welcome to Inside the 90, where we talk about what it's like to go from pains to gains by choosing to live in a 90-day world of EOS. And today we've got Julia Connell with Inveterate, and she's their integrator. And we have Andrew Gissal, a fellow entrepreneur and also an EOS implementer.
Yeah, absolutely. I am pumped to be here, Jamie. So thanks for the invite. And Julia, I'm so glad we get some time to just kind of spend riffing a little bit, understanding a little bit more about your journey. So I implement EOS alongside Inveterate. And so it's interesting because so much of what we do, Julia, is like this. We're in the session room and it's so tactical and we're learning and implementing and we kind of go out into the real world. And so I'm excited today for us today just to spend a little bit more time in the weeds and just have these conversations of value and unpacking that journey a little bit. So maybe if we just want to start out about kind of your introduction into Inveterate, maybe give a little bit of background of where Inveterate kind of came from, started, and then how you got introduced into the organization, and we can kind of go from there.
Sure, I'll take you all the way back 3 years ago. So we are a tech startup. We came together with a true visionary founder. Dylan Whitman's our founder. He has a great career in this ecosystem. He's very well established. He had the idea for Inveterate September 2021-ish. And Dylan and I were connected previously. We started talking about this, and the first thing he said was, read Rocket Fuel and tell me if you still want to do this. Mm-hmm. And I read it and everything clicked. I have been an operator my whole career, wrangling pieces and people and taking visions and putting plans in place. And I just thought, let's do this. This is crazy, not the EOS integrator part, but launching this really fast growing tech startup. So let's do it. And we started with a team, just a couple of us, call it from 3 to now 25 people globally. And in the beginning, it was just constantly go, go, go. So he hired me in as this integrator with an idea that we would get to this EOS thing that Dylan had never actually implemented, but was really aware of existing in other really successful businesses around him. And we grew and grew and grew for about a year and a half, and then reached that point of we've got it. We need systems now. We're big enough. We need systems. And that's what got us started here.
What was, after reading the book and getting moving, what were some of the early things you did on your own just to start implementing EOS?
I wouldn't say that's the approach we took, Jamie. It was you wrangle the chaos, me being me, wrangle the chaos, keep everyone aligned, and do that to the best that you can. What that looked like was weekly one-on-ones and weekly leadership meetings and weekly or then bi-weekly all hands, but without the systems and the structure that EOS really brings. Countless dashboards, just constantly trying to bring something together. We've got a really experienced leadership team. We've all been in organizations that are running pretty smoothly. We all had different experience with different frameworks. And so we would bring pieces of those together, but we didn't have like our system.
Yeah, that's really well said.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to dive in even a little bit more because my experience when I started Bearex, we were in a similar situation where we brought a vision, like me and my partner were visionary and integrator right away as well. And a lot of the businesses that I work with are not that way. A lot of times you have a visionary leader that gets it to a certain spot. We hit a ceiling, and then we need to bring in an integrator to really help build out that structure. And just the forethought that Dylan, kind of had and you had to say, you know what, maybe this relationship is just as, if not even more important than a system. I was literally just listening to a podcast with Mike Payton and Mark O'Donnell, who are two OGs in the EOS space. And they were talking about the system and the visionary integrator relationship, and which one almost is more important, the 6 key components or the VI relationship. And there was a good debate between what are the most important. And so, like, we always think of the system and then VI as part of the system, but just that relationship of having this visionary entrepreneur that really can keep their pulse on culture and direction and not let certain things slow them down, or they don't slow things down because they create
Yes.
chaos, right? In the best of ways, I'd say that because the world
Sure.
the world runs because of visionary entrepreneurs, right? That or grows because of visionary entrepreneurs, but just the forethought of kind of doing that. So I would love to hear the early stages of Inveterate and like putting that relationship in place. Like, talk a little bit about that the benefits of that early on, and what did that look like?
I think you really nailed it. I'm in such a fortunate position that Dylan, my visionary, really knows who he is, what his strengths are, and hires and initially hired against that. I've been in situations where that doesn't exist and the struggles that has on the org. So from day one, he's been the person that says, this isn't what I'm doing. This is what you're doing. So I agree with you on in terms of cadence. We really won in that area.
Yeah.
What that looked like early on, though, certainly a driver of success for us. Just go. Build it, sell it, figure it out, solve the problems, get the partners. That served us really well in the beginning. Just go, go, go. We were all, and still are, fired up, super passionate about what we're doing. There was a lot of grit in that. I wasn't wild. We were really deeply experienced. We knew where we were going, but it was just the best way I can describe it is go, go, go. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Dylan, our founder, isn't a real victim of shiny objects. It's not that. It's just a whole lot of going in a certain direction, and that direction can be real broad.
With that, was there any, sometimes there's tension is good, right? So in that
Yeah.
y'all's relationship, when it was just go, what was some of the tension that you had to embrace there to where you're like, we know this is today, we're going to work it out in the long run, but was there any tension you had to work through?
For sure. Our visionary has a great job of oversimplifying a lot. And that puts a lot of pressure on the team that's actually building and in the details and understands the complexity of a given situation or problem that we're solving or feature build. And so this sense that it's easy, let's just do this. That creates a lot of tension. And when you have a team that's already working on so much, working so hard, that comes off as not valuing their contributions. So that has been a challenging point for us, and we'll get more into how EOS helped ease that tension and solve that. I think a big thing, a real big challenge that we faced, and if we consider it kind of our ceiling, was a lack of accountability without EOS. You have a group of deeply experienced, talented professionals all doing a lot of good work, caring a lot. And I particularly found it difficult to hold them accountable to the things that really mattered when there was so much output, so much work happening. But was it the things that we valued, that we really cared about? And EOS has been a huge factor in giving us that clarity and accountability on the things that matter.
Yeah. What an amazing kind of realization that a team of high performance individuals that are very disciplined within their own category, right? They're very experienced. Bring all of those best people together. This is where Patrick Lencioni talks about the healthy versus the smart team. That smart can only take you so far. If we're not as a group a healthy team, it just stops us, because we all have visions. We all know where we need to go, but they're all individual, and they're like these competing things. Even though may not feel like it, there are competing visions in there. And so this running on one system, running in one language, running on one consistent commitment to focus through like the 90-day world of what that brings. I'm kind of excited to get to that point of, because we spend a lot of time in like what are the focuses and how to do it and do that, but more the ripple effect that you've been able to see through that when we get to it.
Absolutely.
So when I think about that, like I want to spend a little bit of time on this visionary integrator, a little bit more even.
Okay.
Because when I met Dylan, fast forward to you guys have 25 employees, and this is a very typical journey of a startup, especially a high growth, high opportunity startup that has some capital availability, where we putting in EOS right from the get-go. This is why we say 10 to 250 employees is like the sweet spot. That really isn't an employee size. It's more about the maturity of the business and times where, Julia, like your model is such a well-written document, like a case study, because it is about going out. Let's throw everything. Let's move, figure out where we need to be, get some foundational things in place to then put these systems in place to really bring everybody together and create more focus for ourselves. So when I first met Dylan, so Dylan's here in Greenville, South Carolina, where I'm located. Inveterate is you guys have employees all over the world.
Yeah, we're fully remote.
And Dylan and I grabbed coffee, and we had such a good conversation around where we are today, where we need to go in 3 to 4 years, and this really just a simplistic approach to like how do we need to get there, that it was just such a good fit on where we're going. So maybe talk to us a little bit about when Dylan came to you. Obviously you read Rocket Fuel, but when Dylan came to you and like, okay, I met Andrew, what do you think about timing?
Yeah.
Talk about like the introduction of like when that timing was right. What did that conversation look like? I'm curious.
Yeah. I said, there's not a chance I'm doing this without a coach, was number one. We were very clearly getting to a place where the tools that we were using were no longer enough. This was evident in board meetings. There was nothing wrong, nothing was broken, but we were getting to the point of, what are we all reporting on? What are the building blocks that are getting us to this revenue target? Because I was running the organization on basically one metric, which was hitting that revenue target. And we weren't building to that in a meaningful way on product, CS, biz dev, and specific sales contributions. Just high level, are we getting to this incredibly big, hairy number? And that was the point of, we've got to get some systems in. We need a scorecard that ties to the functions that the leadership team is accountable to, in a very simple example of what we really felt like we needed.
When y'all,
So,
oh, I was gonna say, so did that lead to the 90-minute meeting? And who was in that first meeting with the whole team, and what was, reading the book, operating in
yeah.
the concepts for a little while, right, in the VI relationship. What was eye-opening during that first 90-minute meeting with Andrew?
Um, a whole lot of skepticism. To be totally honest,
I
our
love it.
team
Yeah.
was like, why are we doing this? We're doing so many things. Now we're going to do this. How are we supposed to do this? Why aren't we just doing OKRs? And it's like, please, guys, please just trust in us. Give us this chance. So Andrew came in and laid out what our journey was going to look like. And the team's like, okay, sure. And meanwhile, Dylan and I are like, yes, he's our person. This is going to be amazing. So we push forward despite having the team's enthusiasm. And then we planned to kick off. Andrew flew to San Diego. Our whole team was here, and we had a whole travel meltdown. And Dylan couldn't get to town.
That was when
It was the
Delta,
software
yes, the
issue,
Yes.
the
Microsoft
Microsoft thing.
issues,
Yeah.
and this was Julia. This was probably a week after that, and we all got flights, but it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was wild. Yeah.
So then we had to delay things, I think, almost 2, 3 months. And by this point, I had scrapped all my one-on-ones because I'd read the book, I'd met with Andrew, I was ready to move into the meeting cadence and this operating environment, and we weren't there yet. So it was just a little bit of chaos for a few months until we all got back together. But that first focus day, right, Andrew? Focus day? I mean, we had a team that was as skeptical as they were before. And after that meeting, everyone was energized and saw the value and excited to get to work.
Don't you don't have to sugarcoat it. I know there's a couple still skeptical in there. I'm just kidding.
I'm sure there were. There probably still are today, but the tone had changed for sure.
And just to give some context here, there are 5 foundational tools, right, inside of EOS. And so Vision Traction Organizer really helps us set the vision, where we're going, making sure we're all on the same page. Accountability chart lines out our structure to make sure we have the right people in the right seats. We have a meeting pulse, which is weekly leadership meetings, weekly departmental meetings, but then even quarterly planning, visionary, same page, right? Visionary and integrator, same page meetings. We have rocks, which are our 90-day priorities. And then we have a scorecard, which Julia was talking a little bit about, making sure that we keep the car on the road, away from the rumble strips. And so that first day, we tackle 4. We do everything outside of the Vision Traction Organizer. So we learn the tactical tools that create focus, accountability, discipline, that give us confidence to control and drive the bus. So whatever we layer in on the vision, we now have tools to help us carry out that vision to make sure those things are aligned. There's a lot in that first day, right, Julia? We build our accountability chart. We set our first rocks. We learn the meeting pulse cadences and set our first L10. Take a quick pass at a scorecard, and we leave there, and we go into that. So obviously, okay, we're getting the team now starting to work on one system of like, okay, we need to pull this together. How did that feel, that first couple L10s, as you walked into that?
So awkward. Just really awfully awkward. I've got my, notebook off to one side. I've got my dashboard open to guide the meeting. And I'm trying to follow along on the dashboard while constantly remembering everything you just taught us and adopt this new language and approach. So the team has been really gracious with me. But great meetings, the volume of issues that we're solving. Andrew has said this all along. We are a decisive group. That's never been our challenge. But even so, it's easy to get together in a room and not raise the things that need to be addressed. We'll talk about that in another meeting. You and I will connect one-on-one on that. And this framework is really giving us the tools to just get into the meat of it in our meeting. We're still learning. There's a lot of learning still going on, but we're getting better 60 days in for sure. I think one of the early things, aside from it being awkward, that's worth pointing out is in those first several meetings, it felt like it was just a lot of me. I was bringing the issues, the to-dos, all of the updates, like pulling information. So then we got back together with Andrew for our vision day setting and a check-in and went through another training. How does the team use these tools? And that's part of the learning. It's part of the process, I'm realizing.
How many people are on your leadership team?
6.
6. Okay.
Yeah, they have it's amazing. Like, you talk about a smart team. I don't use the word smart lightly. This team each one of them is experts in their field. And we talked about decisiveness, this ability to be decisive. Usually is a challenge, but part of that, label it smart, or whatever you want to call it, is this decisiveness, confidence in the decisions, the understanding that we make a decision, we move on. If it's wrong, we change it. It's just another decision. It's just an issue. Let's just keep moving. So that sometimes teams, that's what we're working on, is that. This team, we need to align the team, not that we are all very decisive in our own disciplines, but we have all different operating systems. We're all running in different areas, and we're chasing after one common goal. So if we have chasing after one common goal, we need to align everybody on that goal, and we need to put a system in place that helps us stay on track on that one goal. Yep. And that's right. And, if I could just give any advice to any company out there going through this that's in similar Julia's position, it's a process, not an event, right? Like, you're taking years of your experience that has got you to where it is, building your mechanism, your cadence, and now you need to take that, combine it with 6 other professionals into one, right? And that's going to take you further than anything. And so that is a process of learning.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, with that, a smart team coming together, it sounds like y'all have, from a leadership team, the right people on the bus, right? Right people, right seats. As y'all went through your vision building day, what did core values come into that day, and y'all had some? Were they shaped during that day? And what role did they play as y'all came out with leadership team rallying around these values?
Definitely, yes. I think, as with everything in our organization, and it's not unique to us, it's an exercise in simplifying. So what are the things that truly matter most? And that was a very effective part of our vision day setting. We maybe had, I don't know, Andrew, 60 core values that we started with as we're, brainstorming and bucketing those, narrowing down. We had a very lengthy conversation about one particular core value, just getting to the root of being smart and what does it mean to hire smart. And so we're just debating this, not in the absence of being able to make a decision, but because it was so important and there were so many inputs to it. And we walked away with 4 core values.
Yeah, and I loved the exercise with you and the team. There's so much value that comes out of having those conversations with Dylan, the founder, and the team, and just everybody involved, because so many times we may have an essence of something, but the actual labeling it and simplifying it is difficult. And Julie, you talked earlier about this idea of simplification and how it's almost frustrating when we make things simple. But what an awesome trait. Like, we talk about hitting the ceiling And there's 5 leadership abilities to break through the ceiling. And the first one is simplicity. And the world lives in complexities. And like that, complexities grow, simplicity is fought for. Does that make sense? Like complexity naturally goes, simplicity is 100% fought for. If you don't fight for it consistently, complexity wins. And so that is just so much of that. And I think I brought our core values because I think it's cool that how they came out, right? Figure it out and get it done, I think is really where SMART turned into.
Yeah.
This idea of figuring it out. So think about that. Think about the conversations we have to not just figure it out and get it done. Like that, like part of it's you got to figure it out. So you have to know when, where, how to get the information and get it done. You need to know how to move that thing forward and get it across the line. And that's what we were talking about with SMART, right?
That was exactly it.
But of y'all's core values, is there one that you just identify with, you latch on to?
I mean, it's that one.
Is it?
That is so true to who we are. It's the group that came together. It's what got us to this point. It's what we look to hire into. The accountability chart has been huge for me. I've done a tremendous amount of roadmap planning, headcount planning in different organizations. But again, the simplicity that the accountability chart forces on you, I think it was a tool that really got a lot of the team on board as well and seeing where this was going to go and how we were going to use it, it being EOS in general.
Yeah, I think from the accountability chart perspective, the accountability chart we build in the first focus day. And we build this out, which has the major functions of our business, the 5 major roles and responsibilities in each function, and then who sits in those seats. And I think for the first time in a lot of businesses, and I think it was true to Inveterate, there was really healthy conversation of who owns this gray area. A lot of the handoffs between, sales and success or marketing and sales, right? So there's like these just really healthy conversations, and we set this foundation. Where I think we really need to go with that is this idea of all these 5 roles and responsibilities in each one, using those bullets and moving those little bullets around, not just the big boxes, because those are the pieces that are really going to help shape where things go. How do we delegate? How do we grow? And I think, Julia, that was a lot of the healthy conversations that you and I have kind of had on the sides of like, when we grow, we can pull this one role and move it here, or pull this here. And like, you start to have these, like, you can build out 3 or 4 future stages as to the options of growth and how do we do that effectively.
And as a growing team, did you find that your first draft of the accountability chart, were there did it bring clarity to many hats? Like the idea of like, all right, we've got far more functions in here than we have people. Therefore, there's lots of hats that we're having to wear.
Absolutely. It's something we knew going into it, but it validates it. It brings clarity to where there's hiring pressure and where you need to prioritize our next investment in people, for sure.
Love it. I wrote this question down. It's the only thing I really like wrote down with pen of like, I want to hear this from Julia is, what is something right now, like a lesson that you are in the middle of learning? Where you're at, you're pretty early on, you're very early on in EOS implementation. But like, what's something right now you're in the middle of learning? It could be personal, like just in the role as an integrator and a new startup and like all these different things. It can be as an organization. It can be the relationship with the visionary and Dylan.
Yep. When you put it that way, hard to narrow to one, Andrew. But I think the thing that's really interesting, Dylan and I, from very early on, have had a mentality of create a plan, execute your plan. We're speaking the same language. This means the same thing to the two of us. and it's not landing with everyone on the team. And we're
Yeah.
looking at each other like, what is wrong with us? It's clearly us. So the lesson I'm in the middle of figuring out and getting the team behind is we've got our rocks. That's great. It's using the milestones to map out how you're going to achieve that rock. And then from those milestones, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever that cadence is for your particular rock, the to-dos and the issues that spin off of that. And that is taking this build a plan ask that's been very natural in my entire career into something that's consistent and we are measuring week after week.
I love it. And it's very timely where you are at in your journey, right? You're in the middle of the first rock setting for this team. So think about that.
Yeah.
I have been doing rocks for 10 years and I still have learnings quarter to quarter. So there's this piece of that that's like, you know where you want to get to, which is such like a like you get it. Like GWC, you get it, you want it, you have capacity on all of that, right? It's now the experience and the reps and the team and like how do we do that? And it starts with setting good rocks.
Well, and I'm sitting here coming out of our quarterly yesterday, which, as I counted, was my 16th EOS quarterly in my multiple EOS journeys, and Milestones. And I'm hearing you say that, and I'm like, all right, I've been doing this. You know, I'm 4 years in and still struggling with rocks. So I'm going to embrace the milestone moment and get those nailed down come Monday with the whole team.
I love it. I love it. It's just that's really good. So in that same vein, where do you see EOS taking you? Like, what are maybe the things that it has not yet delivered for you that you were part of the reason why you wanted to bring it on, or you're looking forward to get to?
Yeah. I am looking forward to seeing the benefits of this 90-day cadence impact across the org in a bigger way. So how that impacts quarterly board meetings, as an example. Really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a couple quarters before we're totally there.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of a consistency in the chaos of business. You know, like this we can at least rely on every 90 days. We all take a breath, we get together, we discuss, debate, disagree, commit, and we go out into the quarter, execute, and kind of have that little bit of a cadence. I'm looking forward to that day too.
I think with that, rolling out to our teams as well. Our team has been hearing about this.
Yeah.
Some have read traction. They're excited to be part of a highly efficient organization and the clarity of communication that comes with that. So there's a lot of anticipation, excitement. I'm excited for hiring. I feel like we've got more clarity. We've got good structure for hiring people who get it, want it, and have the capacity for it.
Yeah.
So on that, are you currently using GWC? And
Yeah.
as you're rolling that out to your employees, what's that look like?
Haven't quite rolled out to the team yet, rolled out across the leadership team, and are looking across the org at where we have gaps, really where we have people wearing so many hats. And I am the proud owner of get it, have the capacity, don't want it, but it's mine for right now. Go ahead.
Just to give some context to that too, Julia and team just finished Vision Building Day 1. So Vision Building is a 2-day agenda. We break it into 2 separate days with 30 days in between. Just finished VB1. After VB2 is when we really start the rollout calendar. So big proponents of as goes the leadership team, so goes everyone else. You see that there's skepticism naturally built into a system like this. So we need the team to be masterful before we really loop everybody around it. And so coming out of next month, it's going to be, a rollout conversation with each individual. We look at the 5 focus day or the foundational tools, and we take which ones we're going to roll out and when. So we put this calendar to a quarterly rollout as well. And that turn around in a year from now and everybody's running on the entire system. And so it's really good. So one thing we didn't talk about is a little bit on the relationship with Dylan in EOS. I know Dylan was a big proponent of it. Maybe just talk a little bit on what the system's been able to do for him as a visionary entrepreneur, and some of the benefits that he's been able to see come out of it.
Yeah, I think I spend a lot of time thinking about the benefit to us from the operating system. Dylan has been so energized by this. It's something he's wanted for so long. And the something is accountability, clarity, and the scoreboard being the tool that we report against weekly.
Yeah.
And so having those tools was very energizing for him. He comes into L10s and he is so excited. We've had to even maybe rein in the excitement a little bit and practice how we solve issues.
Yeah.
But that's been a great asset. Again, this is a little bit more self-serving, but there's certainly been at least a moment where we say, well, what about this? And I've been able to say, we did not put that down as a rock. We knowingly put that off a quarter. That's a very effective tool in just managing that situation. It's not because it's not important, it's just because these other things are more important. And if we try to do it all, we're not going to get the really important things done.
And what a good connection between this idea of simplicity and complexity in the weeds of those things, right? We talked about that early on.
Yeah.
Of that's where a tactical tool can be discussed and debated is we said these rocks. Well, now, even though you're trying to make something simple, I have all these aspects around it. That's a tangible thing to say, yeah, but that's a different rock, so let's not deal with that right now. Just stay here, and makes that connection of the complexity of the natural, everything that needs to get done to actually get to where we need to be, and the simplicity of what we need to get to, if that makes sense.
So I think the stat is like 9 out of 10 companies that read traction and are running on EOS are doing it themselves. So what advice would you have based off of your learnings here in the past few months on to someone who's considering doing EOS formally and why they should do that?
I would say align with an implementer. Our organization may have been unique in some ways. We're venture backed, we're high growth, the stakes are high, the pressure's high. I'm already wearing too many hats. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have been successful without an implementer. And do it sooner. Like if you're considering it, get after it.
Awesome.
It takes longer, I think, than people anticipate to really get it done correctly.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty in it, is you're literally building a cadence in your business that to do well takes experience only, right? It's like you have to go through to get to, you can't just get there.
Yeah. I mean, think about the idea of traction. Like, have you ever gotten a car stuck in the mud? It takes a lot of effort. You get really dirty. And then finally, when it starts gripping in that U-Haul truck, which I loaded with too much furniture I was tearing up my in-laws' yard with, like when it catches and it goes, it's like just such a relief. You're like, I feel it. That is what traction is, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I loved this, Julia. I really appreciate you jumping on so early in your journey too, like just being vulnerable and opening up. You're really going to be able to help a lot of people.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. We're really excited to keep going.
Yes, thank you. This has been awesome for me as well. It's always good to hear really the stories of everyone who's living in this. And it's unique to everyone, but at the same time, because there is a common language, we can all empathize and understand that. You really, just in talking with other people running on EOS, you learn so much more about what they have going on that you can apply to yourself. So it's been awesome, and thank you very much.